Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm bringing you a review for the new Marvel Legends X-Men animated series, Mr. Sinister. Old Nathanial Essex here is a recurring villain in the X-Men comics, but especially in the 90s cartoon, which is what this is based around, especially toward the end of the cartoon. So he was a natural choice to get a new cel-shaded figure in this animated series subline. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Sinister's packaging, then we'll open it up. We'll get a really good look at the figure itself, we'll check out his posability, his accessories. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So our Mr. Sinister comes in a box very much like the other animated series figures. It's inspired by the sleeve or cover of an old VHS tape. However, because Sinister is a larger figure than those that have been released before, his box is a lot thicker than an actual, VHS tape, and especially thicker than the other boxes we've seen. So there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief. They could have, if they really wanted to, they could have made this in a way to where it looked like it was a double tape case, because you would have those. You would have sleeves that had two VHS tapes in them. They didn't do that. They just made it a really, really wide single tape. So sure, why not? So here on the front, we get this really nice artwork of Mr. Sinister having this like DNA hologram coming out of his hand. You can see his laboratory in the background. He's got this really toothy grin that just looks awesome. You get the old like Marvel Comics little corner, I don't know what you call this thing, a rectangle emblem, something, where it's basically like has the comics logo and then a picture of, whatever character the comic was about. In this case, this is for Sinister, so we have his face. You can see the old X-Men logo, and then the X-Men symbol with Mr. Sinister's name in front of it. Top has the same thing. And then both sides are pretty much the same, they just have his face reversed. So, it's made to look like the side of a VHS case. You get, a nice side profile of Sinister. You get this again, which is supposed to be like the title of the movie. And then you even get a parody of the old VHS logo. It says MVL Legends, or Marvel Legends. So that's pretty cool. Alrighty, and then we get the back, which is meant to look like kind of the synopsis of a movie. So, the synopsis comes in the form of some flavor text here, and that reads, "The twisted geneticist Mr. Sinister seeks to create the perfect mutant life form. His chosen test subjects, Jean Grey and Cyclops." And yeah, Sinister, in many continuities, has this weird obsession with Cyclops and Jean Grey. I don't know why, but he is involved in a lot of the Summers family drama. Now, Jean I kind of get, because she's, an Omega level mutant, sometimes even higher than that. Never thought Cyclops was anything particularly special, at least as far as his powers. He's a good leader and all that, but I don't know. For some reason, Sinister just really has it in for them. So yeah, that's the packaging. It's very lightweight because they've gone full cardboard with this. There's no plastic tray or anything. So from the outside, it looks good. But now, more importantly, we need to see what's inside. Now we get to see Mr. Sinister out of his package, and it's kind of awkward, because I said we were going to look at his accessories, but it turns out he doesn't include any at all. No alternate head, no alternate hands, nothing. This is everything that comes in the package. And to make matters worse, he's just a straight recolor of the previous Mr. Sinister. So, yeah. Like, I get he's a bigger figure than the other two, but the original Sinister was sold at just regular Legends price. So, this guy being about $30, give or take, you'd expect him to have a little something extra. Even if he didn't include additional accessories, maybe a new head, some retooling. No. It is the same old Mr. Sinister, just given a very cartoon-accurate color scheme. That's it. That's all you get. So, yeah, that's pretty disappointing, given how cool the accessories have been in this collection so far. But I will say, what we get is great, and he's an awesome-looking figure. Let's take a look at him here. He's got this huge cape accessory. It's double layered. It kind of flows over his back, and it's got these like tassels. And it is heavy. And normally it would create like some back heaviness issues, except it reaches down to the floor, so it actually serves as like almost a third leg to help hold him up there. So it kind of works out. You can see how the tassels are just kind of pushing at the floor. It does, of course, mean that over time, these are just going to get a permanent bend in them from being pressed against the floor. But considering almost every time you're going to have this guy displayed, they are going to be pressed on the floor, I guess it's not really an issue. All right, now let's check out his posability. So his head is on your ball joint and hinge combo, so he can look down really well. Can't look up very much because of his high collar here. Get about that much. That face sculpt. At first, I thought the head might be a different sculpt from the old one. It's not. It's just very differently painted. So, yeah. All right, so he's got universal shoulders right here. He's got a bicep swivel. He's got double bend elbows, as you can see. He's got universal wrists. These little cuffs are separate pieces that can come off. He's got an ab crunch, which feels really good. Nice, satisfying click there. Got a full waist swivel. His belt's also a separate piece. We get universal hips. We get a thigh swivel right here at his go-go boot line. Never really realized that before, but he's basically wearing go-go boots. Kind of funny. Real Rocky Horror vibes from this dude. All right, we get double knee bend, and then we get our ankles with our rock and rotation. And these little cuff pieces, I think, are also... Let's see, what are... Yeah, they're... Okay, so he's got a very low boot swivel is what it is. So the cuff right here swivels on the leg, and then the foot can even swivel on that. So cool, I like that. That gives him a nice range of motion. So, I mean, like I said, he's a great looking toy. Look at this grasping hand here with the little sharp pointy claws. He's very, very cool. I was just expecting a little something extra just to fit the theme of this collection so far. He's definitely the odd man out. So I don't know, I'm a little torn on that. He's easily the biggest figure so far, and obviously is going to command a higher production budget. And if there wasn't already a precedent for them selling this exact figure with a different paint scheme as a standard price figure, I wouldn't really expect more out of this. But because he obviously falls within the budget of your normal core assortment of Legends, I mean, something extra. Even if we don't get necessarily additional pieces, just some retooling or something, would have really, been nice. I don't know. I guess I'd be a little more bothered by it if he wasn't just such a great looking toy and, has such a nice presence to him. Because he really does. Between all this molding, the size, even his cell shading is done really, really well, where you got this kind of blackish color over his blue, you got a dark red over the regular red here. You even get some kind of color swirling on the inside of his collar here, where the collar is actually supposed to be red, but you get a lot of black in here too to show a shadowing effect from his head. So, I mean, he's nice. He is very nice, and I don't think he's a bad deal for what he is. I mean, 30 for this guy is not very unreasonable because he's pretty close to a deluxe size Legends figure, so... Here's a quick group shot with some other villainous X-Men characters, and these are both from the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure wave that I'm currently reviewing kind of alongside this release. So we have Sabretooth, who's a classic X-Men villain, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants member. Then we get Vulcan, who is actually an X-Man on and off again, but he's also a villainous character, so I figured he's worth including here. So, me being new to Legends, I don't have too many X-Men figures yet, and I especially don't have very many evil X-Men characters. So, this is kind of the start of my little collection of X-Men villains, and it's a good start. Obviously, with him being cell-shaded, he may clash stylistically with these two a little bit, but his cell shading isn't so, I guess, glaring that it really throws me off too much. Honestly, if I didn't know about this release or know what it was or what its intention was, I'd probably walk right by it and not even realize it was cell-shaded at first, so... I think it works. I think he looks good alongside, some standard villains that don't have the cartoon colors. And Sinister being one of the more famous and, more recurring X-Men villains, he is kind of just a must-have for, any greater X-Men collection, especially if you're collecting the bad guys. And here's another group shot with the other two animated series X-Men figures that have been released so far. Technically, Storm is out now too, but I got Sinister and Storm at the same exact time and just decided to review him first. So expect to see Storm, coming up next. But this is what I have open so far. So we have our first release, Wolverine, who's, just kind of the Spider-Man of X-Men, right? He's the character that's always going to get some love. And then we get the very awesome Jubilee figure that has one of my favorite head sculpts out there. I mean, I think she just looks great. So, you can easily picture these two, taking on Sinister in some sort of battle diorama or something like that. He's this big, imposing villain, which gives a really cool underdog effect to our heroes because neither of them are particularly tall or big characters. So, Sinister, he's almost like the boss. He's the boss character they got to defeat at the end. And I think it just makes for a really nice contrast between the bright colors and more, I guess, realistic size of the X-Men, who are all, more or less human with mutations, and then Sinister, who is just this absolute behemoth of a villain. So, yeah, I think this whole anime collection is coming together very well so far. And this completes our review of the new Marvel Legends animated series, Mr. Sinister. I gotta say, I really like this figure. Despite my hang-ups about him not including anything new or having any retooling, for what he is, he's great. And, me not having the other version of Sinister makes this all the more worthwhile to me. Now, I guess that really begs the question of, if you have the older version, the non-cartoon colors version, is this guy worth picking up? And obviously it's going to come down to you and, your collecting priorities and all that. But I do think there's enough different about this guy as far as his coloration, because he is quite differently colored than the original. I actually had to go back and look at pictures of the old one just to really get a feel for how much they actually changed his colors around. I mean, overall it's still the same. He's got like white skin and black hair. He's got a mostly blue outfit. But the shades used, the placement used, facial markings, the added red, all that stuff, it does make him quite different looking. So even though he is just a recolor, he is a pretty significantly changed recolor. So if you're somebody that doesn't mind kind of getting a different version of a character or different outfit for that character, I think there's definitely some value in it for you if you have the old one. Especially if you're a fan of the animated series. Regardless of whether or not you have the old Sinister toy, if you are a fan of the animated series, I think you're just going to absolutely love this guy. He looks like he jumped right out of the cartoon. He's one of the coolest villains out there in the X-Men mythos, and especially in the 90s cartoon. So finally getting this really good, show-accurate figure of him, it's great, right? It really, really just triggers that nostalgia and makes you long to go back and watch your X-Men cartoon. Which, I guess it's a good thing that they're, making a sequel after all these years. I hope it stacks up. I don't know. I mean, sequels, especially long delayed sequels, don't always turn out well. So we'll see if they can really recapture the magic there. But I am excited at the prospect of seeing this guy on screen again and just watching him, go through all his villainous plots against the X-Men, especially the, Summers family. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I think it's a great toy. I think he's definitely worth the $30 more than the other figures we've received so far, right? Because there's that bit of an upcharge for these, I guess, because of the special box, which is ironic because it's just cardboard. It's just a plain cardboard box, right? It's one of the first ones to use the non-plastic packaging. So technically that box costs less to make than your standard Legends boxes. And then, I guess they justify it with the cell shading too, which I'm not sure how much more expensive the cell shading paint is. Maybe it is, I'm not sure. But I think he's easily worth $30 because he does feel like a deluxe figure, and he's just really great. Tolerances are amazing. Everything about this guy is just coolness. So I would recommend picking him up from Pulse if you haven't done so already. Of course, that is just my view on old Nathanial Essex here. So now I want to know what you guys think of him. Do you think this guy is a really good representation of the character? Do you think there's enough different about him to warrant a second go at this mold if you have the old one? Or do you not like this for some reason? Maybe you just don't think he's worth double dipping. Maybe you don't like the cell shading, or you don't care for the cartoon or the cartoon colors. Any and all feedback is always welcome in that comment section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Marvel Legends X-Men animated series, Mr. Sinister. And with all that said, I will see you next time.